Okay guys, so today I'm going to do an overview / tutorial on the Toraiz AS1 monophonic synthesizer by Pioneer DJ. This is the second product in the Toraiz range, the first being the SB16, and they both share the Dave Smith analog filters, which you can see here, which is pretty cool because we've got a nice bit of analog warmth. Also in the effects side, we have some of the Dave Smith instrument effects from the Prophet 6, like the distortion, the ring modulation, phaser, chorus, and all that lovely jubbly stuff. So yeah, I'm just going to give you just a bit of an overview of everything. I do apologize for the top display. The screen on this thing is very small and I can't seem to get the GoPro to pick it up very well, so sorry if that's a bit blurry. It is a bit of a mission, this tutorial, because I've got two cameras and a microphone in my face, so I can barely get my hands through, but bear with me, we'll get there. Okay, so starting off, the AS1 does come with the software, as you can see on the screen here. So you can kind of build your patches like that and then save them to the hardware unit, and then if you just want to play them when you're out on stage or wherever, you can do that. Or if you want to just completely work on the hardware, you can also do that. That's what I've been kind of doing with this. I haven't really used the software much, but as you can see, it's a pretty basic kind of software. So yeah, so that's available. If you are using the software, I will admit it's probably easier to be saving your banks and stuff, because saving banks, you've kind of got to, it's not the most straightforward thing if you're dealing with a lot of banks. So yeah, the software is there for that if you need it. Okay, where to start? Let's start with the buttons. Okay, let's just have a quick run through that. If we look up here on the top left, we have the shift control. So when you press shift, it will activate the second kind of display underneath. Like as you can see here, this says semitones. So if we want to change the semitones, we have to press shift. Here it says lock sequence. So if we want to lock the sequence, we have to press shift and that. Okay. Right. This, by the way, this is save. So if you want to save a patch, you press shift, global, or right, sorry, and then that's how you save, okay? You can change the name of it and stuff like that. Okay? But to come out of it, you just press hold, that'll quit. So that's save. The next one, this parameter control, this changes the presets, but if you press shift, it changes the bank. So we have user bank 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're the user banks, and then if you keep going, you've got the factory banks. You've got 5 factory banks as well. When you first get the AS1, the user banks and the factory banks are the same. Okay, so that's just worth noting. The parameter knob, if you're changing something within the preset, that's how you scroll through. And then if you want to change something on that amount, you then use the value. Pretty straightforward. Moving on, we've got the volume control, pretty basic. Next row, filters, pretty standard. Okay, here's your filter control, then you've got your envelopes. Oops, I just knocked the camera. Amazing. Okay, so they're pretty straightforward. Then we get to the LFO. Let me just go back to the first bank. Now the LFO, when you just move the knob, this is the rate. Okay, this is how fast the LFO is going. If you press shift, it then turns into the amount. So this is how much it's kind of affecting. Okay, how deep it's going basically. So can I show that? So that's how deep it's going, and then this is the speed. Okay, hope that makes sense. Then we have the effects knob, which say you have a patch that has effects on it, turns them on and off. Okay, that's that. Effects button, dead easy. Then we have this latch button. Now the latch button, you can assign different effects to this slider. You can have this controlling like the filter, so opening and closing the filter. You can have this affecting the pitch. You can have this opening the delay, or the ring mod, the effects. So that's what that does. I'll show you how to assign that later. The latch button is if you have that enabled and then you press somewhere on the slider, it'll hold it. Okay. That's basically what it does. If you have it off, it always turns itself off, but latch just holds it on. So say if you want to just open the filter and leave it there, you can do that. You could also do it here, but it's there if you want it. Moving on, we have octave up, octave down. Yeah, and if you want to change the semitones, like I showed you earlier, press shift. You can. If you're wondering why I've got a black finger, by the way, I trapped it in a steel drawer. So yeah, hope that's not too distracting for people. Moving on, the record button, this is for making sequences. So it's like a step sequencer, so you press record and then you move through step 1. You can move the note. Step 2, you can move the note. Step 3, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, basically that. And if you read here, it says hit hold to tie. Now what a tie does is it ties the note together, okay? So it'll kind of, it'll make it longer. And then the ARP is like silence, and then you have this thing called slew. Now a slew is like, if you ever hear like a 303 and it kind of like, you hear that pitch bendy sound, that's what a slew is, okay? So you can add that as well. Yep, that's that really. Play, pretty standard, plays a sequence. Lock sequence. Basically, if you, let me try and show you. Say we like those MIDI notes, yeah? So if I press shift, lock sequence, what'll happen now is if I go to a different patch, what it's done is it's locked the sequence, okay? So it locks the MIDI and then you can change your patch. So that's that. That's pretty cool. Hold. I think you might have saw me do that before. If you press a note, you can hold it. Arpeggio. Arp. If you have that pressed in. You press hold as well. And then you have these different menus, so you can have the ARP going up, down, up and down, or random, or assign. So let's just have it going up and down. Okay, that's the ARP button. When you're in the ARPs, by the way, this is where this button comes in. This changes the tempo, okay? But if you press shift and that, divide, it splits up the sequence, okay? Your ARP sequence. So let me just show you. As you can see now, we're going into 8th triplets. 8S is 8 swing. 8th dotted, and then it goes up. Okay, so that's that. Tap tempo, pretty straightforward. If you press shift and then tap, what it'll do is it'll restart the sequence. So I think this would be a really handy feature when you're trying to cue something up. So say you've got some decks playing and you've not got it like synced up or anything with MIDI cables, you can just tap it, okay? So if that makes sense. So that's a pretty straightforward feature. Yeah, also when you're pressing the MIDI notes, if the sequence is playing, if you press a different note, it'll change the route. So if you want to follow a chord progression or something, that's how you do it. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, now let's have a look at the global tab. This is where like all your main settings are. Number one, we've got master course. So this is usually a C, but we can change it to something else if we want. But yeah, you can do whatever you want with that. Master fine. Pretty straightforward. Aeolian, scale mode Aeolian. So what, as normal, it's like this. You can play all the notes. But if you put it in a scale mode, which I had it set in Aeolian, it doesn't play the black notes. It just plays all the white notes in scale. So yeah, hope that makes sense. There's quite a lot of scales in here, by the way. Some really cool ones. Some I've never even heard of. So yeah, that's that. Moving on, quick program. Okay, quick program. You have 13 of these. Okay, and what you can do is you can change. Once you've made your presets or you find ones you like, there's a quick feature to launch them. Okay, so this would be good for like live use. If you press Shift and Latch, it will enable one of the 13 presets. Okay. I've already pre-done this, but let me just play it and you see what I mean. Oh, hold on a second. So Shift, Latch, 1. Shift, Latch, 2. This is my second one. So as you can see there, I'm holding Shift and Latch and then just going through my presets that I've already pre-arranged, okay? Okay, so that's like kind of, that's really good for live purpose. But yeah, this is where you kind of edit it all. So this is your quick program. So this is where you program everything. So user bank 2, program 1, that's the first one. User bank 1, program 2, that's the second one. You get the idea. So that's what quick program is. Then we have some MIDI stuff. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. That's kind of pretty straightforward, or in depth as you want. Mono stereo. Turn it to mono, or you can have it in stereo. Screensaver on, off. There's all sorts of stuff in here you don't really need to know about. But basic program. This is for kind of initializing a patch. So if we now press latch, it would initialize this preset. That's basically what it does. I wish they hadn't put it at number 23, because when I'm initializing, I've got to kind of hit global, come all the way to 23. I kind of wish it was like number 3 maybe, you know? Anyway, that's what it does. Calibrate. If we press latch, it's now calibrating all the oscillators and the filter. And they do recommend in the manual to let the synth warm up for about 20 minutes before you do this. And if you change in from like hot rooms to cold rooms, you know, if you're taking this on a cold stage somewhere, you want to keep redoing this, okay, to keep it calibrated. Okay, so that's the calibration. And then dump all bank stuff out. You don't really need to know about all that. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. That's all the controls and the global kind of background settings. If we go back to here, basic program. This is just like an initial patch that I made. Let's have a quick look at the oscillators. So in the oscillator tabs, we have frequency, which is basically the pitch. So this here, C2, we can change that. So if we want to play in G minor, because we've got it in, we set this to Aeolian, didn't we? Oh no, we're in Dorian. So that's in Aeolian. If we now change that C2 to G, we're now in G minor. Go down an octave. Okay, so that's the first tab in the oscillators. The frequency, which is the pitch. The shape is the shape, so we can now morph between a triangle and a saw wave, and a saw wave and a pulse wave. So let me just fire up Ableton 1 second. So let's just start with a triangle. As you can see, nice triangle there on the screen. Just morph it into a square, a saw, sorry. Now from a saw to a pulse. Now, when you're in the pulse wave, okay, the next tab is pulse width. So this is the kind of width of the pulse. So let's just play that again. And if you get it to 255, it goes silent. If you get it to 0, it also goes silent. Yeah. Pretty straightforward stuff. Sync. What this does is it syncs the oscillators so they both start at the same time. Frequency. This is oscillator 2 now. So you can kind of have a chord. Well, let's just kind of put it on another G. What you need to do though, you have to go to the mix section and kind of turn the oscillator up. See, oscillator 2 hasn't got any volume yet. There you go, you can hear it now. Let's just turn it off for now. Where was we? Pulse. Oh yeah, frequency, and then oscillator 2 fine tune, so you can fine tune it. Everyone knows what that does. Oscillator 2, same again. We can morph through the shape of the waveform. Pulse width, same again. Key follow on. Now, what this does is if you don't have this on, right, the oscillator 2 will just play one pitch. So let me show you. So if we turn oscillator 2 up and oscillator 1 down, where was we? Key follow. See, it just plays the frequency that you set it at. Okay, but if we have key follow on, both oscillators are playing the same note at the same time. Basically, they're following each other. So yeah, I don't know why you would have that off, to be honest. But yeah, that's what it does. Low frequency. You can basically turn oscillator 2 into an LFO if you want to. That's what that does. Slop. What slop is it detunes the oscillators to emulate kind of old analog stuff. So you can't really hear that right now because I've got oscillator 1 off, but you should be able to hear it now. So that's what that does. It gives it that kind of detuned feel. Then we're into the mixer section. Oscillator 1, that's the oscillator 1 level. Oscillator 2 level. Then we have a sub. And if I turn both oscillators off, you'll see that the sub is a triangle. Okay, so that's the sub, and then we have a noise oscillator. So that's pretty cool. Turn that sub off, turn oscillator 1 back on, the saw. Low pass filter, this is basically just a digital readout of kind of what's going on here. We can kind of skip through that. Key amount, that's the kind of the way the filter's opening in regards to kind of where you are on the keyboard. Don't need to go into too much detail. Velocity, I don't know if this has velocity actually. Yeah, I don't know. If you kind of had a keyboard plugged into this, like a MIDI keyboard, there's a lot of kind of features, like aftertouch and stuff like that, that you would need a keyboard for. You can't do aftertouch on this. So yeah, you need an external keyboard for some parameters. High pass filter, that's this. So it's just a digital readout of what we're seeing here. The resonance, same again. Velocity, filter envelope. This is, I'll come back to this in a second. Amp envelope, that's kind of like this. You're attacking, delaying, decay and release, sorry. Glide. Let's turn the glide on. So that's like your glide rates. I don't think I need to go into too much detail about that. There's different kind of glide times. So it kind of changes. It'll kind of change. If you do closer notes, it'll go faster. And if you kind of do longer notes, it'll go longer. Stuff like that. So just have a play around with those. There's quite a few. LFO. This is just a digital readout of what I showed you earlier with this dial. So as you can see, put that to 133, it'll be 133 there. Sync, that's LFO sync, so it'll sync to your tempo. LFO shape, so we've got triangle, reverse saw, square, random. LFO initial amount, that's like when you press shift, an amount. So that does. These are the LFO destinations, so that'll oscillate at one frequency, that's the pitch. So that means if I turn that on, when I enable the LFO, it'll oscillate the pitch. This is for the second oscillator. So if I enable that, it'll LFO the pitch of oscillator 2. Now this will oscillate the pulse width. Okay, let me try and show you that on the screen. But what we need to do first is it only works if you are using a pulse, and we are using a pulse. Turn the amount up. So what we're doing there, we're basically LFOing the pulse width. Okay, so that's that. Where was we? This is so difficult, I can barely see what I'm doing. Yeah, the LFO mount, been through all this. You can LFO the VCA, the voltage controlled amplifier. So that's like your volume basically, you can LFO that. Slider, this is this now. So if we turn that on, this will now turn that LFO off, it's going to drive me mad. Okay. Slider frequency 2, so if I enable that, it'll change the frequency of, the pitch of oscillator 2 as well. Slider, okay, this will do the filter. So we could latch that. So it's changing the pitch and closing the filter. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Slider LFO, so you can have this changing the LFO amount as well. That's quite cool. Slider effects mix 2. Okay, yeah, this is now, say if we've got the chorus on and the delay, that's what I was mentioning earlier, that can then turn the delay on and off if we enable this, but we don't have any effects on yet, so there's no point. Modulation source. Now this is where it gets really cool, because you can start doing like FM stuff. But first, let me just get my bearings. The modulation source, oscillator 2. And then the destination is oscillator 1. So now we're basically FMing. Okay, so that's that. You can also have... Where was I? It is a bit trippy working like this on this screen. I will probably do this tutorial again on the software. Probably go a bit faster. Modulation source. Okay, so now I skipped over before the filter envelope, but if we now apply the filter envelope, it will kind of oscillator 2 will only FM when it goes through the filter. Okay, so you can play with the attack and release times. So let's go back to the filter envelope. You see, so oscillator 2 is now kind of slowly coming in because we've got like a slow attack, then it's FM in it. Yep, okay. Hope that makes sense. This is so trippy, man. Effects. Okay, let's... Let's add some effects. Turn on. So we've got a delay. Got a mix for the delay. Time. Let me just change the patch. Go back to the effects. Sorry about this, it is a bit trippy. Effects. So turn the effects on. Effects on. Type. Delay or distortion. Ring modulation. Leave the ring modulation on. Sync, we can sync the effect. Leave that on. Effects 2, we can have a chorus now. Okay, so that's the effects section. Sorry, I'm losing the will to live here. I can't believe this is so long. Yeah, so we've got some nice effects in there. And then we've got aftertouch. But like I said, we can't really... I can't show the aftertouch because I'd need a MIDI keyboard plugged in. Yeah, okay, guys. I think... The end bit there, that's just your sequencer. So when you press that, it's kind of all your sequence notes. So that's what that is. Basically, I'll just go through that one last time with you. So if you want to make a sequence, you basically just press record and then... Yep, and then you just press play. Just like that, and it's all in scale as well. Yeah, I hope that was interesting. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions about that, just ask me. I'm probably going to revisit this and redo it all again, but in more detail in certain areas, because it's tricky for me to kind of talk through it, and you see this kind of little tiny screen. That's a little bit blurry, but yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, if anyone's got any requests of tutorials that they'd like me to do on this synth, just let me know. Yeah, okay guys, thanks for watching, and if I don't see you the week, I'll see you through the window. Goodbye.